Right, the American Federation of Teachers held its Teach conference yesterday and had as a keynote speaker, critical race theorist Ibram X. Kendi. Now, up until a couple of hours ago, in fact, I was getting ready to come into the studio, and they had his talk available to the public for viewing on YouTube. But now the video has been made private. You can't see it. But could it be in part because he said in his remarks that, quote, we live in a dangerously racist society? Or could it be that he denied that CRT is being taught in K through 12 schools? Well, with me now to talk about some of the latest news regarding this divisive effort of teaching critical race theory in the classrooms is Congressman Dan Bishop. He represents the 9th Congressional District of North Carolina. Dan, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tony. Good to see you. Good to be back with you.
Well, good to see you. Glad you are with us. First of all, regarding the claim that this divisive teaching of critical race theory is not in the classrooms in America, how do you respond to that?
You know, the left is in disarray about this, Tony. They are changing their answers almost on a daily basis, because they are seeing moms and dads across the country coming at them with everything they got. And so the first thing they say it's not being taught. Well, actually, I think the first thing they said, Tony, was those of us such as me who are sponsoring legislation to ban this practice didn't know what critical race theory is. That we don't know. And that's it. So you get all their compliant reporters would say that on CNN. We'll try to get somebody and say, well, what is it? They want you to just define the thing. And then they say it's just an academic doctrine. And then they say it's not being taught. But then you see people come out and say it is being taught. Then the union comes forward and said it should be taught. And then I guess the latest is the union saying that they'll litigate to defend teachers who teach it in defiance of bans by state legislatures. They are reeling, Tony. This is one of the best signs I've seen about any culture war controversy. They know they're losing, and they're trying to find some solid ground to plant a flag on.
Yeah, this is a classic, got their hand caught in the cookie jar, and they are trying to, well, there's no cookies in there. They know they have been caught. I've got from the American Federation of Teachers, the president, Randi Weingarten, in a speech, I think that's her name, in a speech before union members, she made two statements and they were contradictory. First, I'm going to play clip number 2.
The new cultural campaign, some lawmakers and Fox News are using to distort history, limit learning, and stoke fears about our public schools. Let's be clear. Critical race theory is not taught in elementary schools or middle schools or high schools.
Okay, so it's not being, just like you were saying a few moments ago, it's not being taught, but here in the same speech, this is what she said a little bit later, clip number 3.
Mark my words, our union will defend any member who gets in trouble for teaching honest history. We have a legal defense fund ready to go, and we are preparing for litigation as we speak. Teaching the truth is not radical or wrong. Distorting history and threatening educators for teaching the truth is what is truly radical and wrong.
So they're not teaching it, and that's actually what's being restricted by certain school boards and more legislative bodies are saying you can't teach critical race theory. They're not saying you can't teach the truth or you can't teach history. So why would they need a legal defense fund if they were simply teaching history?
They know exactly what they're doing, Tony. Let me make that point, though, crystal clear. They falsely ascribe to these pieces of legislation, including mine, that we're suggesting that someone should not teach history honestly, or that it shouldn't teach history, including all of the warts and the racial injustice in the history of the United States. Nothing could be farther from the truth. These bills are quite specific. They don't say anything of that kind. In fact, many of them specifically say that all honest history should be taught. What they say you can't do is this critical race theory. Another term for it is critical social justice. Another term for it is race essentialism. The idea that our current society is inherently racist, that to be white is to be racist and to oppress people of other races or other, if you're a male, then to oppress women. That is the poisonous ideology. And they intend to defend it because they intend to inculcate it. And there's one more point I think worth making, Tony. They object, sometimes they're saying it's not being taught. In fact, it's being practiced. No, they're not really explaining critical race theory. What they're doing is they're practicing critical race theory. Yeah. They're inculcating it among children by imposing these ideas on them. That's what they're doing.
That's an extremely important point because as a theory, it is not being taught as a theory in elementary school classrooms, but it is the framework from which the teachers are teaching. And if you want to be broader and use layman's language, they should not be able to teach the students in public schools to hate America, which is what they are doing. They Absolutely. Are, as you said, they're indoctrinating them, inculcating them with a view of America's history that is slanted. As you said, we need to teach it, warts and all. But we're still a country that is moving in the right direction, and the rest of the world has benefited from it, and we have done our very best to correct our errors. But what they want to do is only focus on the negative aspects of America, and as we're seeing in the polling, teach young people to hate this country.
That's right, Tony. And many have correctly observed it is a Marxian theory. It is akin to Marxism. It's not precisely the same, but the idea is critical. I mean, the whole notion of critical theory is to foment conflict constantly, undermine, talk about how bad the country is and our culture is and people are and the culture, set groups against one another. And it has an objective to radically reorder society and rights and laws in order to have some utopia emerge. That's Marxian, and that's what they seek to do.
But I have another problem, Dan Bishop, with this, and this is the fact that I think the teachers have lost who they work for. They work for the parents. It is the parents who pays the taxes so that they can go in the classroom and teach their children. And now you have teachers who are acting as if they are the ones that control this whole system, and they'll teach your children whatever the heck they want to teach them, and you just keep your nose out of the classroom.
Exactly true, Tony. That's what they suggest, and this has been sort of a growing problem over a period of years. It's kind of the way the union shop works, perhaps, but that's correct. I even saw a New York Times editorial joined in by David French, who at one point in time was a conservative, and he called these pieces of legislation that seek to ban this practice a speech code. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is not restricting somebody's free speech. This is a question of prescribing curriculum for public schools. State legislatures do that and other regulatory bodies, and teachers are their employees, and they teach children what those authorities decide as duly elected representatives of the people, what children should be learning. It's not up to them to inculcate ideology, to be political. That's not what they're there for, and states are well within their rights to correct problems like that when they occur. Those teachers work for the people.
And Congressman Bishop, the silver lining here maybe is what I'm I've got almost a 20-year perspective here in Washington when I look at these things. This reminds me of 2009, 2010, when the Obama administration, Nancy Pelosi was Speaker. They pushed through Obamacare, even though the American public did not want it. That gave rise to the Tea Party. The Tea Party, we had a wave come into Congress in 2010. The Republicans took the majority. I see this as a Tea Party type movement that goes even deeper, because this is at the local level where you have parents going into school boards. I think you're going to have a wave across the nation where parents take back our schools, which is going to have a domino effect, city councils, state legislatures, and even Congress.
I think you're completely right. You know, Tony, if I can, there have been lots of issues that are just fundamentally, they're just astonishing, the position that the left is taking. Take the other one, defund the police, as if anybody would have thought that could potentially be a successful political strategy or strategy for managing civic life. But they did that, and people are reacting, and you're seeing the crime rise through the ceiling. So now they've gone beyond that to say, we're also going to poison the minds of your children in public school, as if that should get them down the road. You are exactly right. There is a building wave, and where the left sees it and why CNN is all over this and trying to ridicule people is because they see moms and dads in school board meetings all across the country, moms and dads of all races, Tony, and all genders, telling it to these officials, and in some cases taking them out of their offices by recall. They see this wave building. Let me say this to the moms and dads across this country. Do not pass up this opportunity. This is the time to double down and make yourself heard. And then, of course, as you say, Tony, we've got work to do in 2022.
We've got to fan those flames and keep things moving. Congressman Bishop, one thing I might disagree with you on is that you said this doesn't make sense. It does make sense, you know, defunding the police, pushing this radical ideology in the classrooms. If you're driven by a Marxist ideology, it does make sense.
So I get that. And at bottom, Tony, you and I know it is a spiritual war that we see, and we see it in so many different ways. When I say it doesn't make sense, the only thing that I mean is the left is misunderstanding the American people. In my view, there is a silent ultra majority in the United States, and they have had it up to here, and they're getting ready to speak.
Yeah, I said that somewhat tongue in cheek. I know you know that, but here's the thing: I do not think they understand the depth of the resistance, just like they didn't in Obamacare. Now, I actually, one of your predecessors who was on the other side of the political aisle, I was having dinner with right before the Obamacare passed, and I said, "Doesn't Pelosi realize you guys are going to lose the majority over this?" And he didn't pause, didn't stop. He said, "You know what? They do, but they know they'll fundamentally change the country." And then they play that way. But this is our opportunity, as you said, for moms and dads all across this country to push back in a way that I think could fundamentally do a course correction for our nation.
I see the same opportunity, Tony, but as you and I understand each other, I think the question then that arises, and we had this problem once the 2010 wave occurred, will Republicans find the resolve necessary to meet the needs of the people and to fight back? That's the problem. Is the left has seen, even when they see these opportunities to when they lose the majority, when these in massive waves, they've never quite recovered from 2010. All the state legislative offices and governor's offices they lost, and yet it's sort of a one-way ratchet. They consolidate their gains and they move on again with something even more radical. We've got to stop that.
But what I've seen, Dan Bishop, is that over the course of time, more conservative members of Congress have come. Republicans who are not Republican in name only. There's still some, you know them. They're there, but there's fewer of them. There's more men and women like you who are motivated by their faith, drawn into this arena because of that. Dan, we're out of time. I want to thank you for joining us. We stand with you and grateful for you.
Thank you, Tony. Great to be with you.